Welcome to Critter Crusades, the show about ordinary people on extraordinary missions to help animals. I'm Missy Woodward. Today we're talking about a very important subject, and that's volunteering at animal shelters. It's something you can do, something that's very available in every city across the country. I'd like to introduce my guest. To my left is Sherry Brewer, someone who I've known before, and through other means, your family is very involved in community activism, and it's showing up in what you do as a volunteer at the shelters. Lisa Whitaker, I know you're very involved with mobile adoptions and getting animals out into the community and letting people know these animals are there. And Gretchen, you're there as a trainer. You're doing all these types of things to help the animals be available to go out and be in the perfect home, the perfect animal for the perfect home, and make that perfect match.
We try.
Yes. So let's start with you, Sherry. Tell me about your experience, why it's important to volunteer, and why you do it.
I do it because I see so many wonderful, wonderful animals turned into the shelters for various reasons. Nowadays, it's because of foreclosures. There's not enough staff to treat the animals, to give them exercise, to groom them. And so I go in with Lisa and a couple of other volunteers to take them out for walks, let them stretch their legs, give them attention, and try to evaluate them so that when people do come in looking for a good house pet, I can lead them to the kennel and introduce them. And it usually turns out pretty well.
How did you get started?
I started with a rescue group as a volunteer, and I would go to their adoption events, and then they moved out of my area. So I thought, well, I want to stay with the animals, and the shelters, the animals there desperately need volunteers.
That's great. Now, I forgot to mention probably the most important person slash guest, let's put it that way, at our show today, and that's Daisy. The reason you do what you do is because of these fabulous creatures such as Daisy. Daisy is a rescue from the shelter.
She is.
She's how old?
She's about 6.
And she does have epilepsy?
She does.
Yes. And so you're taking animals that people may say, why help an animal that already has a problem? Why do you do that?
She's wonderful. She's just a great companion. She just gives me so much love, and she's just a really great pet to have in the home. She gets along with the cats, and there's so many like her that maybe they have, you know, most of the animals in the shelters don't have these kind of health disorders. She's an exception, but there are some that do. And so they need special people who are willing to help them as well. I mean, they deserve a chance to have a nice long life, and she's fine with medication, so. And
I hear, you know, so many times you see three-legged animals now. People, it's not even a big deal. And I always say, I bet that animal's name is Tripod, right? 9 times out of 10, they've always named their animals Tripod. So tell me a little bit about your work at the shelter with the mobile adoptions.
Well, I got started because I went in to make some donations, which the shelters always need across the country. Donations of blankets and toys and dog beds and things like that, towels. And so I went in there to donate some items to the cat room at one of our local shelters, and a volunteer there invited me to come to a mobile adoption that we were having. And that's how I got involved. And so now what I do is I help with our mobile adoption program, where we take a number of animals. It's a pretty large program, about 30 dogs and about 10 cats, out to a park. And the community knows that we're there, and so that's how I have stayed involved. I also go to the shelter and select the animals that are going to come, and Sherry helps me with that as well.
And I will say that I receive your incredible, incredible, heartfelt emails. The consistency with which you send things, it's not bothersome. It's very direct. It's like, these animals are left over. We have to do something now.
Yes.
These are the red listed meaning they are on the chopping block, literally.
Yeah.
I know the animals we showed at the opening, they were all at death's door. You all got them homes.
They all have great homes.
And they have fabulous homes. That kind of information, in this technology age and information age, it's what you're doing, I think, is what has impressed me more than anything about how you're doing this, and you don't stop. That's the thing, you don't stop.
We can't stop.
And I know, Gretchen, you made that point.
No matter how many dogs we train up, no matter how many we get adopted, there are 10 more for everyone we get adopted. A lot of it's because people aren't spaying or neutering their animals. And until they start doing that, it's going to keep happening. But it's such a huge effort to be able to put, what we do is we put some training on dogs who've been passed over for quite a long time. And right at their death's door, we yank them into the program. So many of them come in because they were an adorable little puppy. And then they got bigger. And nobody took any time. And now the dog's jumping or the dog's mouthing them. Very simple things to train through, but people don't take the time. Everybody's too busy anymore. So they end up at the shelter. And sometimes those same people go out and get another puppy.
So you are a trainer by trade.
Yes.
So you volunteer your services. How does that work for you?
It's absolutely amazing. When they started the new shelter system, the captain, then Captain Bowers, invited a bunch of trainers to come and see the shelter, because it's the old style one felt like a horrible prison. And the new design, even though the dogs are still in kennels and they're still, those big eyes are looking at you, it's a lot more friendly place to be able to go and see the animals. So anyway, we got there and we thought, what a great way to be able to give back, since we make our living doing this with animals. I've learned so much I can't even tell you. I've trained for an awful lot of years, but these dogs are incredible. We get purebreds. We've got shepherds and Rottweilers and Goldens and retrievers, and there are 2 pointers in there now. Very expensive animals, as well as some of the most amazing mixed breeds that you'll ever see.
So that's a word to everyone out there. Everybody out there, remember, if you're a trainer, you can volunteer at the shelter.
Please, we need everybody.
Because everybody has a purpose. That's what's so great. Everybody that does a different thing with animals, people that are groomers. I know you have the grooming aspect that when before you take them out, especially for those big adoption days, they ask all the groomers to come out, the people to come out and make them look really, really pretty. Now, we kind of tend to be talking in a way, I think it sounds sort of like dogs, but I'm very much a cat person, so tell me about the cats going out. Do they get to go out to mobiles, and what happens?
We do. We do take some cats out to our adoption events as well, and we also have special cat adoptions only that are very successful in a mall, in a local mall, that allows the animal services group to go in there. So that's also another idea that people can do, and that's very successful. And the cats are just absolutely wonderful. I mean, I take them out of their cage, and they, give them some time to run around in the room and stretch their legs, because they are stuck in a small space, until they get adopted, and it is kind of hard to see what their personality is going to be like. So it's important for volunteers to be there to take the animals out of the cage, so people that are interested in them can interact with them and see what kind of personality they have, and their playfulness, and the animals can get a little bit depressed there at the shelter, and so it's not, you don't always see their true personality.
And I think that's something where you come in, Gretchen, because the testing that they use, I forgot what, temperament testing and everything, so many things have changed in that world. So you're really able to, I guess, talk to somebody and say, I know you're seeing this animal sitting in the back of the pen. When you see it outside, you're going to see a totally different animal. What do you do to prepare an animal, or how do you help that person that doesn't necessarily see the vision of what that animal can be? How do you help them?
Most of the time, it's us identifying the dog that's having the problem. Once these guys really interact more with the public than the training group does. What we do is we go through, and for example, like you say, there's a dog who's too shy to come forward. If they don't come forward, nobody's ever going to adopt them, because we as humans, we want that dog coming up and saying to us, hey, you're special, I'm special too. And if the dog's too shy and is stuck in the back, it's never going to happen. So we see that, and we do a lot of different behavior protocols to help that dog get comfortable and get over that anxiety, because it's a scary place. And some dogs are just, I'm cool, and some dogs are, I can't deal with this. And we do a mix of those dogs. Some dogs look like Cujo behind it, but they're not. It's just, they're yelling at the world, I'm scared. So we take them out and we do the basic behaviors.
How many times have you, Sherry, I know because you work so one-on-one with the people, I've heard of this. The people walk in and say, I'm going to take the ugliest dog next to death today, which is going to save a life. Does that happen very often? I've had that happen with several people. They say, you know what, just give me a dog that's ready to die. I want to find one that's the worst case scenario because I want to save their life.
Sadly, it doesn't happen often enough. I have met a couple of people where they did come in wanting to save those dogs. I became friends with a young woman that came in a couple of years ago and watched as an employee carried this dog out to the social yard. And I thought it was a puppy because it was being carried and it didn't want to move. And I went out there to see what was going on, and the young gal says, she starts crying. And I said, are you adopting this dog? She says, I saw her online and she's so old and frail, I don't want her to die here in the shelter by herself. And she adopted the dog and gave it a few good weeks, and the dog had to be put down, but she had, this gal was there with the dog, so she knew she was loved. And that is so unbelievably touching. A lot of the times I try to dissuade people from taking puppies because they think they're so much better for their young children to grow up with. But a puppy's going to be a big dog in 6 months, and the child is going to remain a child. So I try to lead them to a dog that I've interacted with, I've taken out, I can see whether they're jumpers, and those are the people that will email me back and say, thank you for showing me this dog, it's the best dog. And those are just as rewarding, that people trust us as volunteers, because we do spend so much time.
And when you're doing your mobiles, you've got these animals outside, so they're in a totally different environment. They've been penned up, so there must be a stress release factor going on there. I know you're always asking for people that are big dog handlers or small dog handlers or different people to come volunteer on those days. How does it work with your mobile adoptions? How do you find the right volunteers to do the work with the right animals so that they show the best?
Oh, there's so many things that a volunteer can do at our mobile adoptions that whatever your skill level is it doesn't matter. And basically we have people come that have very little dog handling experience, but they learn. And so we give them a dog that's really easy on the leash, or we have trainers come. Some of Gretchen's team will come and they can work with those volunteers. So you can really learn a lot as a volunteer. I really didn't know a lot about dog handling before I started. And now I'm not afraid of any dog, and and I've learned a lot about behavior thanks to Gretchen and her team, and it's just myself as a volunteer, I've grown a lot in that way. And also we do dog washing. We have people who do paperwork for the adoption. So there's a lot of different things that a volunteer can do at our event. You work with the cats, educate the public. We try to do a lot of educating as far as teaching them about the spay-neuter law, and also just teaching them about what kind of a dog are you looking for, because it's important when someone's adopting that they know what kind of personalities a breed might have. And we defer to the experts on that as well. But just in trying to educate the public, that's something really, really important that volunteers can do, even if they don't feel as comfortable handling the animals. They can work on that.
And so I know there's a new spay and neuter legislation in Los Angeles that any animal over the age of 4 months would be required to be spayed and neutered. Are you thinking that this is going to make an effect? Or what do you think?
I think a large part of the problem is that it's very hard to enforce. And we can have all the laws we want on the books, but if there's nobody out there saying, excuse me, can I look under and see if you've followed the law? and they just don't have the manpower. It's hugely important. So I think it needs to be more of an education process. We hear so much of the time, I want my dog to at least have 1 litter. Well, okay, you've got a mixed breed, and you love your mixed breed. What are you going to, what dog are you going to match that mixed breed with to get a dog that you think is going to be the same fluffy dog that you love so much? The answer is, it's a crapshoot. So these dogs are wonderful, but there's so many standing there, we don't need to be breeding more. And the honest truth is, I don't think it's going to make a whole lot of difference. What do you guys think?
I agree.
I think it's important that it be on the books, very much in every large city, especially because people need to know, and especially when you have people that you're going into, let's say you're busting a home of hoarders, and you've got to have legislation on the books somewhere.
Right. Absolutely.
But as far as what you do at the LA Animal Services does, and I know in other large cities, it's required that the animal leave spayed neutered.
Yes.
Not like it used to be where here's your little slip of paper, come back and prove and get your money back that that animal's been spayed and neutered. No, it's that that animal has to leave spayed neutered. So that's a very important aspect when you've got those animals at the mobiles, so they can actually leave that day with their pet guardian, correct? If they are spayed and neutered, they can leave that day. Do you tend to pick spayed and neutered animals over the non-spayed neutered for the mobile adoptions?
We focus more on a variety, having a variety of breeds, and there is every breed under the sun at the shelters, at any shelter across the country. There you can find any breed. I mean, there's such a huge variety, and so we try to bring that variety in ages. There's puppies, there's adults, there's seniors. We try to bring different ages. Same with cats. There are senior cats that need homes that are wonderful companions for someone who just wants a lap cat or just a
great
kitty
for
to
senior
just hang
citizens
out.
as well.
Absolutely.
It's a really great program to do.
Yeah.
Now, I know you have some success and thank yous that you would like to talk about a little bit. I would love to hear some of those and let people hear what a difference it made for you guys to be involved to then eventually make the match happen and the success.
Well, I find that when I get to know somebody and I get to know the dog, I tend to give my phone number, my email address, so they stay in touch and give good feedback, bad feedback, whatever. And the differences that I see, for instance, a couple was in the shelter about 1.5 years ago and adopted a puppy. And I was a little bit hesitant, but this dog was so cute, and so I tried to tell them what they could expect. They wanted the dog. So about a month later, I get an email from them that the dog is, they love her, but she's so destructive, they don't know if they can keep her, they're gonna get kicked out of their apartment. So I wrote back and I said, please do a little research. Find out from a trainer what you need to do. I get an email back a little bit later, it's working. A year after that, they send me back and they say, thank you for the support, for the information. She is the perfect dog. Those are the kind of letters that we get, that we hope to get. Basically, it's
and that
just
wouldn't exist if a volunteer hadn't been there, hadn't given out their number, hadn't taken the time.
We do that a lot.
Right, and that's something that people, especially in smaller towns, if you're volunteering at shelters, people know each other as well. They can stay in touch, but in these large cities where you're anonymous to the world, look at what a difference that made. Do you have any of these that you would like to share?
Well, I have one. It was interesting. I had posted several red-listed dogs on Craigslist, actually, and I was at the shelter on a Saturday and visiting with the dogs. And this woman walks in and she comes up to me and she says, do you know anything about these dogs? And I go, yeah, a few of them. And she happened to have, she printed out the post from Craigslist, and it was the dogs that I had posted. I tell me what you're looking for. And she says, well, this one looks okay. I said, let me introduce you to one that I think would be suitable for your family. The children were a little bit hesitant about the dog because he didn't kind of have that eye contact initially, but they went ahead and adopted him. And she sent me several emails, and towards when the dog finally got acclimated to their home, she says, a huge thanks to you in caring for the loving community of animal lovers. Rescuing has made an enormous positive impact on me and on my children as well. Thanks for giving us the dog's life. So,
that's wonderful.
Yeah,
That's sweet.
it's overwhelming, and that's what keeps us going, is this wonderful feedback that we get.
What sort of feedback do you get as a trainer?
Well, if the dog is in the training program and it gets adopted, which all of them have, thank God, we do a free session.
So let me stop you. 100% of the animals that get in the dog training program are adopted?
Yes. We don't pull them until they've been there a long time, so they often have developed behavior problems or just started to melt down.
So this is a proven fact that this works.
We're very careful to make sure that the program is working. And we've got 3,000 training volunteer hours from last year from a wonderful group of people, some of whom weren't trainers that we've taught them to train. But we do a follow-up session for them in the home in the hopes that, you know, because as Sherry said, there is no perfect dog unless you've really worked with them. You've got to expect some things. So,
and there's no perfect family either.
And that's the thing. And there was something written that they're trying to post at the shelter now. It's not just about saving the dogs' lives. The dogs give us so much.
Yes.
And the thing is called I Saved a Person's Life Today. And it's written by the dog, and it's just, it gives you chills.
Yeah.
I read
it's so
that too.
true.
It's great.
Yeah.
Or cat. Let me just point cats, rabbits.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
They have other, I mean, even hamsters and guinea pigs.
I was in there, they were bringing in a turtle. Somebody rescued a big turtle on the side of the road.
We have a python
Right.
actually at our shelter right now. Yeah.
So because of your volunteer efforts over the last several years, have you seen adoptions increase?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. And I have to say that as we do a lot of networking, and since we've gotten to know Gretchen and the trainers from the East Valley shelter specifically, it has been so helpful because we have their cards. If we have an adoption from the shelter and there's any problem, we know we can rely on them to help. And they give discounted rates. They'll go out there at last minute to try to introduce the dogs properly. So there are so many ways now that you don't have to give up on an animal if it's not working immediately. You know, you can't expect any animal brought into a new home to adjust automatically overnight.
Right.
That's
So you really see that the return rate is slowed down by this process, by the fact that you've got a networking of support. And that's really the whole thing. When shelters were existing with just the people in the uniforms walking in, an animal comes in, the situation is, and especially in rough economic times, at different times in our economy or whatever, animals come in and animals go out. They're hoping, I know with spay and neuter, that will slow down. But there's just a myriad of things. I know that one person that you all know that's a volunteer, Scott, has talked about how he likes to, you know, sit down and talk to somebody before they turn an animal in and say, like, out of these 9 questions or whatever it is, what would it take to keep you from from turning this animal in? Is it medical costs? Is it this? Is it that? And they try to work with, before you turn this animal in, let's try to work and solve these issues for you. How is that effective, and what have you seen with that in the shelter system?
Well, we wish that we could do more of that, and we think that that would be extremely effective in any shelter system, relinquishment counseling. And also not just relinquishment counseling, but then post-adoptive counseling. I mean, we do it with children, right? So why not with animals? And helping adopters with any kind of issues that might come up, like what Sherry's experienced, and I've had a few of those as well. I had a family who adopted a completely shut down border collie recently, and the dog was hiding in the kennel and just really shut down, and they had 2 other border collies at home. They recently wrote to me and said, it's amazing, she's completely come out of her shell. And they're really dedicated to working with her, and really it was just that she was so depressed at the shelter. And so, I mean, it was very gratifying for me to get that email back saying that it's worked out beautifully, and I gave them, you know, Gretchen's information in case they need further training or any help. And so I think that really, I think people need to know that they're not alone out there, because some people they do have a misconception that the animals in the shelters all have problems or, you know, behavior issues. But I think any animal is going to need some consistency and some training. Is that right?
Absolutely.
And no matter where you get your pet, and you know, you've got to be able to provide that. And I think sometimes people feel better knowing that we're able to follow up with them. So it's relinquishment counseling and also the post-adoption counseling, in my opinion.
All right, we just have a few moments left. Tell me, from your viewpoint, Gretchen, what's the most important thing volunteers can do, or what is it, or why it's so important to volunteer from your angle?
Because we've got so darn many animals, and it takes so little help for somebody to learn just one tiny thing. How do I keep that dog from messing up in the house? If we can do just that, that dog can have a wonderful life in the home. But we need more people. I need more trainers. I'm willing to help them. They learn a lot. I learn a lot every single day. But the more people can get involved, the more animal lives are saved, and the people's lives are so enriched you just wouldn't believe it.
What would you say, Sherry?
Well, I believe too that talking to the public, educating them, letting them meet dogs that are so adoptable that might just be afraid, teaching people that there's so many misconceptions to having a large dog in a small house. So many people think they need a yard for a big dog, which is total misconception.
I had a huge dog, 120 pounds, in a condo for years.
Exactly.
They sleep all day.
Exactly. They think it's unfair to the dog, but it's that's.
And then it got its runs in the afternoon.
Exactly.
Exercise,
Exactly.
right?
It's exercise. All they want is a space near your feet to lay down and sleep, and it's just trying to get to know the dogs. They all have such different personalities, and finding the right family for them. But people have to realize that it may not be an overnight match. Give it a chance. Don't give up.
Right. Don't give up is really the message, I think. And I know that Daisy is glad that you didn't give up.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would never give up on this little girl.
Right.
No,
and
she's the best thing that's happened to me. And normally I gravitate towards big German Shepherds, but
Pit bulls.
yes, but there was just something about her, and we're a perfect match. It's just she's just the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Well, thank you all so much for doing what you do.
Thank you.
You make the shelter system work. I think everybody needs to follow suit and do this around the country. Thank you so much for joining us here on Critter Crusades, the show about ordinary people on extraordinary missions to help animals. Go out, help at your shelter, call them up. You can bring things to help the animals, gifts, toys, blankets. You can show up. You can just smile at the door so people know it's a friendly place, not to be afraid, and go make a difference. Thanks so much for joining us. See you soon.